Well, thank you so much, Emily, and I'm so privileged to have been able to put this together and to actually have it part of the AquaHacking Challenge. A little bit about me. I spent about 15 or so years working for the province of Ontario as a scientist and a policy analyst for Great Lakes stuff. So my friends know me as a Great Lakes geek. I'm definitely passionate about the lakes. And the issue that I'm bringing to your attention today, I should say right now, I'm a professor at McMaster University. The Booth School of Engineering Practice and Technology is interesting because we run master's programs, and the one I run is on engineering public policy. So the engineers who want to figure out how to influence policy come to us. But we also have a sustainable design program and an entrepreneurship and innovation program. So for the entrepreneurs in the room and the design engineers in the room, keep your heads up. So let's go. Endocrine disruptors. This is nothing new. And it started it really got unveiled with Silent Spring, the very famous Rachel Carson. If you've never read it, you should get a copy of the book. So these are substances, and I'll get into the details on these substances, but for over 50 years, starting with Rachel Carson, there's chemicals in the environment that have hormone-like effects on wildlife, but not just wildlife. So what are they? They cause health problem in people as well. Since the 60s, we've known that through Rachel Carson's work and beyond. And these substances, the endocrine disrupting substances, can be from PCBs or pesticides such as DDT, and then other ones made their way into the Great Lakes and the United States before we started taking steps to end their production and limit their usage. So PCBs and DDT were banned. That's good, but there's a lot of other substances that are still plaguing us. So these substances harm human and animal health, and what we are seeing are some efforts to improve testing and filtering them out at water treatment plants. So the emphasis very recently has been, are there minute traces of this in our drinking water that we should be concerned about and get rid of? And I'm going to demonstrate to you that that's not good enough, because this guy doesn't take drinking water from the tap, right? It's whatever's out there in the environment, that's what our beautiful bald eagle will eat. So they are compounds that interfere with the function of normal hormones. They could stimulate or block the actions of hormones, or interfere with the way hormones are metabolized. They mimic normal hormones. They antagonize normal hormones. They disrupt the synthesis of normal hormones or their receptors, sort of like this. So you could see, for example, the green and the red are trying to go into the receptor, but then you have an endocrine disrupting substance knocking them out and basically changing the cellular response. So as soon as you take out the red and the red functioning in that receptor and put in the yellow non-functioning activity, you get a distorted cellular response. Here's the challenge. We're not talking about can we find a substitute for one thing, because they're in pesticides, plasticizers, flame retardants, industrial byproducts, pharmaceuticals, and even plant-derived compounds. So you can see by this, we need flame retardants. We are going to always have plastics. We're not going to tell people to stop taking their medication. So the issue here is not necessarily product substitution as it was with DDT and PCBs. It's a different type of challenge. So here, for those who like to visualize what's going on, we have some areas where we might be able to address the consumer and the user. For example, personal care products. Some of the personal care products we use can be replaced with ones that don't have endocrine disrupting chemicals in them. We can, which we have in Ontario, ban the application of pesticides for for cosmetic use. But there's the other ones, like pharmaceutical drugs and some of the industrial chemicals and the heavy metals and their compounds that they form, that all are part of this soup, if you will. So here's the threat to humans. So I'm going to show you the threat to wildlife, but if we're thinking about the threats to humans and is this serious, well, a lot of the research is suggesting that declining sperm counts, declining male to female, in other words, more females born than males, increased in testicular cancer, increase in breast cancer. So all of these are very much related to fertility. So human fertility is very much affected by endocrine disrupting chemicals. So we had these substances in the 60s and the 70s, estrogenicity of DDT, ketone, and PCBs. But in the 1990s, we had new types of plasticizers like phthalates and bisphenol-A, new types of pesticides, phytoestrogen, human estrogen contaminants. So you might realize or not that when a human takes a birth control pill, 90% of that chemical ingredient, the estrogen, is urinated right out into the waste stream. We never imagined that we would need to treat at wastewater treatment plants Triclosan, which is an antibiotic, estrogen from birth control pills, or alkyl phenolics, which are precursors to plastics and perfumes and detergents. Our wastewater treatment plants were designed to remove nutrients. They are not designed to remove these substances, and these substances pass right through the wastewater treatment plant, getting into the receiving water, into the environment, into the Great Lakes. So what do they do when they're there? Well, they alter the hormones of fish and other animals, leading to also reproductive problems in those species, developmental problems in those species. For example, an experiment was done with minnows exposed to contaminated wastewater effluent, and they were, it says here, demasculated. Well, they were feminized in 14 days. Male minnows becoming feminized. Other things we see are that male fish at the end of the pipes of sewage treatment plants have ovaries. Clearly, that should not be. That is the canary in the coal mine, if you will. That is a disaster. So, these compounds are widely used in detergents, in cleaning products, personal care products, adhesives, and our treatment plants are not designed to handle the compounds. Similarly, alkyl phenols. We can't destroy these with the present way that we're running our wastewater treatment plants. So are there other ways to run our wastewater treatment plants? Well, there are some. For example, reverse osmosis, for if there are any engineers on the call. It's a membrane removal. It removes alkyl phenols, but it is incredibly expensive and really not practical for widespread application. These membranes are so fine that they get clogged very, very quickly, and the amount of energy that's required to use them is prohibitively expensive as well as energy costs go up. We really need an energy efficient treatment approach if we're going to look at treatment at a sewage treatment plant. Some researchers have said slowing down, like keeping the sludge in the plant longer, helps the organisms that are there to consume the organic matter and break down these chemicals for a longer period of time. It can remove alkyl phenols, but it also has important treatment impacts on the capacity of the plant to move water through the plant. So a plant is designed to have a hydraulic capacity of X, and now if you expand the amount of time that you need to retain the sludge, you've now put a reduction on the amount of water that can be treated at the plant. So you now need to expand plants, which is also very expensive. So I want to spend a fair bit of time on this because I want the creative people on this webinar or listening to this afterwards, as you're listening to this, to think about novel solutions. How does it get into the environment? How does it get at the treatment plant? Manufacturing products for human use or for agricultural use. Manufacturing, you can have a manufacturing stream that pre-treats their effluent, but it goes to the sewage treatment plant. Human use goes to the sewage treatment plant. Agricultural use goes straight to the surface water. Water treatment effluents go back into the surface water, and it all goes back into biota and eventually perhaps back to us. So the question I have, are there ways to prohibit these substances from even getting to the wastewater treatment plant? Perhaps some of the substances can be removed from production, but as I've shown you, it's pervasive. It's in the endocrine disrupting properties of so many chemicals are pervasive. Is there a novel way of capturing them before they leave our use of them in our households, in our places of work? How do we find an affordable, innovative means to capture and destroy the chemicals that we use in our house or at work before they get to the sewage system and then into the receiving waters? That is my challenge. And with that, I think we have a lot of time for questions.
Wonderful. Gail, thank you so much. That was inspiring, and I hope not too depressing, but you shared some really, really incredible details and flow of these substances. So thank you so much for all of your expertise and for that information. I would then, I'd love to open it up either if anyone has any questions to pop in the chat box. I think there's also a few folks that we have calling in. So we'll just give a few minutes if there are any questions. If now is the time that you can unmute yourself if you would have anything to ask Dr. Gail right now. But just in terms of next steps while we're waiting for any questions, as I mentioned, if you were joining late, this will be recorded and shared, so you will have opportunity to kind of dive into all these details and refer to the slides as well as Gail's commentary. We will also have opportunity as teams are formed and participants choose this challenge to connect you directly with various mentors and experts who are going to be advising on this challenge related to endocrine disruptors. So you will have lots of people at your fingertips to answer questions as they come up and as you have potentially very specific issues that you are looking for more information on. So it doesn't look like we have any questions at the... Oh, okay. One question has just come in from Mudit. So Gail, the question is, does the challenge looking at technologies at wastewater plants to remove these EDCs or just removal at the source, i.e. households, etc.? So this is kind of a question about clarifying what really is the challenge. Is it a technology for the wastewater plant or at the household level?
So Mudit, that's a great question. At the end of the day, the challenge is to stop them from getting into the lakes. Okay? So to stop them from getting into the lakes, it could be stopping them from getting out of the sewage treatment plant, which would be a technology, or stopping them from getting out of the sinks, out of our pipes, going into the sewage treatment plant. So it could be capture, some other technology or innovation that could capture them before they go down the sink, for example. That would be another way of addressing it. So either way of addressing the challenge solves the problem of getting them out of, stopping them from going in to the receiving waters of the Great Lakes.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Gail. And it looks like that did clarify it for Mudit as well. So I'll just wait another few moments if anyone has questions to pop in. Otherwise, Gail, again, thank you so much for all of your work to put this together and to really pose and position an incredible challenge for us, something that is very time sensitive, very important for us to be looking at and putting our efforts towards for AquaHacking this year. So we are very thankful for your leadership in this and excited to continue working with you throughout the challenge this year. So this will conclude the webinar on endocrine disrupting chemicals. Thank you everyone for joining us, for taking the time, and we look forward to seeing what challenges you choose to tackle. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.